They thought she was just another housewife in yoga pants. But when the HOA's private security dragged my wife off our front porch, right in front of our kids, they had no clue she used to run field ops that don't make it into newspapers. She gave them one warning. They didn't listen. And what happened next? Well, the HOA learned the hard way. Some women don't just fight back. They destroy. When we moved into Belridge Gardens, I thought we were finally getting what we always wanted. Peace and quiet. A fresh start. Just me, my wife, and our 2 kids in a calm, gated neighborhood that felt 1,000 miles away from the life we were trying to leave behind. I had spent over a decade buried in high-stress government work. Late nights, classified files, constant pressure. And my wife, let's just say her resume was even more classified. To most people, she was just a brilliant woman who'd travel for work. But behind that warm smile was someone who'd navigated more dangerous situations than I cared count. When she left that life, she said she was ready to be a full-time mom, bake too many muffins, maybe learn to paint. I believed her. Belridge Gardens looked perfect. Big trees, clean sidewalks, polite neighbors who waved but didn't pry. It felt safe, predictable, exactly what we needed. Or so I thought. From the day we moved in, we noticed the neighborhood had its quirks. The HOA was run by this woman named Clarissa Rowe, mid-50s, sharp chin, tighter blonde bob than any politician I've ever seen, and a permanent expression like she just smelled something sour. She didn't introduce herself when we arrived. Just watched from the end of her driveway, arms crossed, clipboard in hand. The first letter came 2 days after we moved in. Friendly reminder. Your trash bin should be hidden from view at all times. HOA Rule 4.6b. It wasn't even signed, just typed, printed, and stuffed in our mailbox like a warning shot. After that, it was a steady trickle. Your mulch is too dark. Mailbox paint is not regulation beige. Garden lights too bright. Each message dressed up in neighborly language, but laced with passive aggression. We started joking that Clarissa was running Belridge like her own little dictatorship. My wife would laugh it off, but I could tell. Every letter made her eyes narrow just a little more. Things really shifted after the landscaping mix-up. Our gardener accidentally trimmed a bush that technically touched the sidewalk. Harmless mistake. But 2 days later we got slapped with a $600 fine. I thought it was a typo. I called the number on the letter, expecting to clear things up. Nope. I got Clarissa herself. Her tone was smug, almost rehearsed. Mr. Carson, this isn't a suggestion. Your property violated community guidelines. You're responsible. I tried to reason with her, told her it was a mistake, that we'd fix it, that a fine that high over one shrub seemed excessive. She didn't budge. If you'd like to dispute it, you may submit a written appeal to the board. Processing time is currently 6 to 8 weeks. Payment is still due by Friday to avoid escalation. Escalation? What did that mean? I didn't have to wait long to find out. That Friday morning, I looked out the window and saw a black SUV pull up in front of our house. It had the words Belridge Garden Compliance Enforcement printed across the side in gold lettering. 2 people stepped out, a man and a woman, both wearing dark uniforms with matching patches on their arms like they were some kind of tactical team. I remember thinking, this can't be real, but it was. They walked up our driveway like they owned the place, clipboard in hand, sunglasses on like they were about to serve a warrant. My wife was on the porch watering the ferns. I watched her look up, clock them, and smile, but not in a friendly way. The tight kind of smile she used when she was watching for a threat. And that's when I knew, whatever peace we thought we bought when we moved here, it was gone. It was one of those perfect Saturdays. The kind where the weather is just right, music's playing low on the speaker, and you got ribs marinating in the fridge. I was outside by the grill, tinker with the coals, thinking about nothing for once. My wife stepped onto the porch, barefoot, holding her favorite mug, the one that says, I'm retired, not expired. She was in her weekend mode. No makeup, hair tied up, relaxed for the first time in weeks. She went over to water the ferns, humming to herself like everything was normal. That's when the black SUV pulled up again. Same logo, Belridge Gardens Compliance Enforcement. Same 2 people stepped out. One man, one woman, dark sunglasses, same tight uniforms with those ridiculous patches on the sleeves, like they were more than just security guards for an HOA. Only this time, they had holsters, not visible before. Now they weren't hiding them. I stood up slowly, wiping my hands on a towel. My kids were playing in the yard, and I remember glancing at them, wondering if they noticed. The enforcers marched straight up to the porch. I saw my wife clock them. She stayed calm. She always does. But I could tell something shifted in her. Her stance. Her grip on the watering can. Like a switch flip, not fear, just readiness. The male officer spoke first. Flat tone, like he was reading from a script. "Ma'am, we are here to enforce a cease and desist order issued by the Belridge Gardens HOA. You are in violation of Community Ordinance 12.9 regarding noncompliance. Under the guidelines outlined in our charter, we are authorized to initiate civil detainment until this matter is resolved." I was already moving across the yard. My wife didn't say a word. She just looked at them, then tilted her head and said calmly, "Get off my property." That's when it happened. The woman stepped forward, grabbed her by the wrist, twisted it behind her back, and shoved her against the porch column. My wife let out a short breath, not a scream, not even a grunt, just the sound of someone more annoyed than hurt. My kids froze. I heard one of them yell, "Mom!" I lost it. I ran up the steps, yelling, "Get your hands off her!" But the man turned toward me, one hand near his belt. "Sir, don't interfere. This is a formal enforcement action." "Enforcement of what?" I yelled, heart pounding. "You're assaulting my wife on our own porch." They didn't answer. They were already dragging her down the steps like she was a criminal. That's when I saw her face. She wasn't scared, not even close. She looked at me with this calm, measured expression like she was waiting, like she already knew what was coming. And then the third car showed up. A sleek, silver HOA branded sedan pulled to the curb, and out stepped Clarissa Rowe, hair perfect, blazer pressed, clipboard in hand, like she was walking into a board meeting. She didn't say a word, just stood by the car watching, smiling, like this was all going according to plan. I glanced up at our doorbell camera, still blinking red, recording everything. I knew in that moment this wasn't about a bush or a mailbox or some made-up ordinance. This was personal. And Clarissa? She had no idea who she just laid hands on. After they let her go that day, she didn't say much. She came inside, quietly washed the dirt off her hands, sat down at the kitchen table, and drank the rest of her now-cold coffee like nothing had happened. I was still fuming. I wanted to call the cops, the news, a lawyer, anyone. But when I brought it up, she just gave me this look, calm, steady, and said, "Not yet." That look, I hadn't seen it in years. It was the same one she used to wear when she was preparing for a mission. Back then, I never asked questions. I didn't want to know what she did in those countries with names you don't find on postcards. But I knew the routine, the silence, the stillness, the planning. She was slipping back into that version of herself, the one who doesn't make noise until it's time to strike. That night, after the kids were asleep, I found her in the office, laptop open, 2 monitors going, notebooks spread across the desk. She wasn't Googling gardening tips, I'll tell you that much. I peeked over her shoulder and saw a digital map of Belridge Gardens, property boundaries, HOA committee members, financial reports. She didn't look at me when she said, "Clarissa's running a side operation, shell permits, inflated fines. She's got connections to a private firm called Blackwood Civic Enforcement. No official contracts, no oversight, and at least 2 harassment complaints that never made it past the HOA board." My jaw clenched. "She's dirty." "She's careful," my wife replied, "but not careful enough." Over the next few days, she fell into a rhythm I hadn't seen in years. She started waking up at 5 a.m. again, running 2 miles before sunrise, practicing at the range twice a week, calibrating old surveillance gear she'd packed away when we left D.C. I asked her once, "Are you sure we want to escalate this?" She looked me dead in the eye and said, "She laid hands on me, in front of our children. She doesn't get to walk away from that. That shut me up. I watched her turn our home office into what looked like a miniature command center. Files pinned to cork boards, timelines, photos, names I didn't recognize, probably Clarissa's board members, some of her inner circle. I wanted to help. I wanted to protect her. But she kept repeating the same thing every night. Stay calm. Let me handle it. So I did, even though I hated it. Even though every instinct in me wanted to take action. But this wasn't my battlefield. It was hers. And whatever Clarissa had started, she had no idea what she was walking into. Clarissa didn't back down after what happened on the porch. She doubled down. The first hit came in the mail. A thick envelope labeled urgent. Financial notice. Inside was a lien notice. Apparently, we now owe the HOA over $3,000 in accumulated fines and compliance processing fees. Processing fees. For what exactly? Breathing without HOA permission? I called the number on the letter. Went straight to voicemail. When I emailed the board, I got a single sentence in return. Please refer to the HOA violation packet provided. They had attached a spreadsheet. I counted 17 different infractions, including improper decorative lighting and unapproved garden gnome. I wish I were joking. Then came the fake noise complaint. It was a Tuesday night. No music, no guests, nothing but us sitting around the dinner table playing cards with the kids. At 8:40 p.m., a patrol car pulled into our driveway. The officer was polite, but clearly confused. Got a call from the HOA. Complaint about loud music, possibly yelling. Just had to check in. I looked around at the completely silent house and said, "Do you hear anything right now?" He shrugged. "Honestly? No. Sorry to bother you, sir. Happens more than you'd think in this neighborhood." He didn't say her name, but I didn't need him to. Clarissa was poking us, seeing if she could rattle us. The worst was our daughter's birthday party. We planned it for weeks. Backyard decorations, rented bouncy castle, a dozen kids from her class, balloons, cupcakes, the whole nine. An hour in, while the kids were laughing and music was playing low in the background, a white pickup with a magnetic code enforcement decal rolled up. A man in a bright yellow vest stepped out, clipboard in hand. "Someone called in a zoning violation," he said. "You don't have the proper permit for an outdoor recreational event with amplified sound." "It's a birthday party," I said, already seething. He didn't care. He handed me a cease and desist order and said the inflatable had to come down immediately. The kids watched as the castle deflated behind them. My daughter cried. I will never forget the look on my wife's face. That night, just after midnight, we heard the clank of metal outside. My wife looked at me. Neither of us said anything. We both just got up and went to the window. Her car, parked in our own driveway, was being hooked up to a tow truck. I ran outside, shouting. The driver didn't even flinch. This vehicle is in violation of HOA Code 7.12, unauthorized vehicle storage on residential property. Call the board if you have questions. He drove off. We knew who authorized it. We didn't need to guess. The next day, I followed my wife to the monthly HOA board meeting. I stood by the door while she sat in the back row. Clarissa stood up front like she was hosting a game show, going through budget updates and community event calendars like none of it meant anything. When they opened the floor to the comments, I walked up to Mike. I'd like to know how a legally parked car got towed from private property in the middle of the night. I asked, voice steady but tight. And why my daughter's birthday party was shut down by a man who didn't even show ID. Clarissa didn't miss a beat. She gave me this sweet, tight smile and said, some neighborhoods just aren't a good fit for certain families. That was it. No apology. No shame. She said it in front of the whole room. My wife didn't say a word on the drive home. She just stared out the window, tapping her fingers against her leg. 5 quick taps, too slow. It used to be a habit before deployment. Later that night, I walked into the office and saw her typing fast. Too fast. What are you doing? I asked. She didn't look up. Clarissa's system has a back door, she said quietly. Most HOAs run outdated security. I'm spoofing a board login. I didn't fully understand the tech, but I knew what it meant. A minute later, she froze, stared at the screen, didn't speak. Babe, I said. Nothing. She just slowly leaned back in her chair and whispered, "Oh my God." And that's when I realized this wasn't just about us anymore. I woke up around 2:30 a.m. to a sound I couldn't quite place. Not loud, not obvious, just off. A soft metallic click. Like someone messing with the garage door lock. I sat up and looked over. My wife was already gone. By the time I made it down the stairs, I found her standing in the hallway, barefoot, holding her sidearm low and steady. She didn't say a word, just raised a finger and pointed toward the back of the house. I followed, heart pounding in my throat. Through the narrow gap of blinds, I saw a figure crouched near the side gate, dressed in all black, flashlight clipped to his shoulder. He moved with purpose, like this wasn't his first break-in. My wife slipped out the side door like a ghost. I couldn't see what happened, just heard a quick scuffle, a grunt, then silence. By the time I got outside, he was on the ground, not bleeding, just subdued. She was crouched beside him, calm as ever, one knee on his back, hand tight on the back of his neck. "Who sent you?" she asked him quietly. He didn't answer. She pressed a little harder. "You've got one chance." He grunted. "Blackwood. I work for Blackwood Civic. I'm just a patrol officer. They told me to come here. Said you might be hiding classified intel. So we needed to scare you off the property." She glanced at me, then back at him. "You came to intimidate a mother and her kids. You didn't do your homework." He coughed, tried to speak, but she was already letting him go. She stood up, grabbed him by the collar, and leaned in close. "Go back to your boss," she said, voice low and cold. "And tell Clarissa next time I won't be so gentle." He limped away without looking back. At 7 a.m., I came into the kitchen to find my wife already at the table, laptop open, coffee steaming next to her. She was uploading files, photos, emails, audio clips, screen recordings, everything she collected. "Where is it all going?" I asked. She didn't look up. Every resident in Bell Ridge, every local reporter with a backbone, 3 members of the state attorney general's office, and Clarissa's church group, for good measure. I just blinked. The package was untraceable. No return address, no name, just one line printed across the top of every file. "You deserve to know who's running your neighborhood." By noon, it was everywhere. Local Facebook groups exploded. News vans started showing up. The emails showed Clarissa's embezzlement schemes, kickbacks from Blackwood, and proof that residents were being fined based on fabricated violations. One recording had Clarissa on speakerphone saying, "The more we fine them, the faster they sell." That's the whole point. Blackwood Civic Enforcement got dragged into the spotlight, too. Turns out they've been operating without a valid license for 2 years. No insurance, no oversight, no accountability. Just an army of uniformed goons pretending to be law enforcement. The state opened a formal investigation that same day. Within hours, Clarissa's bank accounts were frozen, her assets flagged, her passport revoked. But the cherry on top? At 5:46 p.m., every TV in the area flipped to the same local broadcast. Clarissa Rowe, queen of Belridge Gardens, clipboard tyrant, power blazer dictator, was being perp-walked to her own front yard in handcuffs, right in front of her precious rose bushes. She was screaming about lawsuits and conspiracies, yelling at the cameras. Domestic terrorists. That's what they are, in yoga pants. The clip went viral before dinner. And me? I just stood there on our porch, arms crossed, sipping my drink, watching karma unfold in high definition. Clarissa's house went on the market 3 weeks after her arrest. Big white mansion with Corinthian columns, 5-car garage, and a perfect lawn that probably got more attention than her own kids. Now it sat empty, yellowing at the edges, like the whole place had aged 10 years overnight. She was facing 4 felony charges: fraud, conspiracy, harassment, and operating an illegal enforcement unit. Her trial date was already set. Her lawyer quit after the first hearing. And the cherry on top? The HOA froze her pension fund. The empire she built on fines, fear, and fake power? Gone. Meanwhile, my wife and I were right where this all began, sitting on our porch, morning coffee in hand, feet up, watching the street. Only difference now? There were 3 new security cameras on the house, a reinforced front door, and a motion-activated gate that buzzed anyone who even looked suspicious. Peace finally felt real. That weekend, the kids asked again, same question they've been asking since everything went down. Mom, what was your old job, really? She looked at them, took a slow sip of her coffee, and finally said, I helped people who needed help, sometimes in places where it was dangerous to do that. They stared at her for a second, then nodded like they understood more than they let on. Cool, our youngest said. So like a superhero? She smiled. Something like that. With Clarissa out, the HOA didn't last long. The residents held an emergency vote and disbanded the board. No more enforcers. No more petty fines. No more letters about mulch. They formed a new committee, optional, community-led, focused on actual concerns. Nothing mandatory. Just neighbors helping neighbors. They offered my wife a seat on it. Gave her a standing ovation. Even. She turned it down without hesitation. I didn't burn down their castle to sit on the throne, she said. Instead, we threw a barbecue. First one we'd had since everything happened. Word spread fast. People we'd never even met before came by. Some brought drinks. Some brought pie. One old man came over and shook my wife's hand like she'd just saved his life. We always wondered who would stop her, he said, eyes watering. We just never thought it'd be someone like you. My wife gave him that same smile she wore during all the quiet parts of this war. The kind that says, I didn't come here to fight, but I'll finish if I have to. As the sun went down, I raised my glass and looked around at our yard, now full of laughter, music, and peace. To peace, I said, to privacy, and to never underestimating the woman in yoga pants. Everyone laughed, except me, because I wasn't joking.